What's going on, guys? So we are out here at the RV on the property, and I was thinking of a topic for a video that I don't think I've done before, and it's such a simple basic one, and it's simply RV 101. Now, not RVing 101, but RV 101. I want to go over a few little basic things that even if you have an RV, you may have never thought of these. And we're going to try to make this into a comprehensive video that kind of explains what certain things are, how to do certain things, and how they can benefit you as an RVer. So hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so I came up with this idea mainly because of an issue that I had, and I didn't know if other people may run into this issue. And what this issue involves this little Simply Safe camera that's standing on top of this Anderson trailer jack block. And I use this camera to look at this information screen for all of my Go Power solar equipment. So over here I have the panel power status, I have my inverter information, and I have my battery information, as well as the charge information for it as well. So these three monitors are really important to kind of monitor what's going on with my RV. Well, I've been trying to access my Simply Safe camera recently, and for some reason I haven't been able to access this one specific camera. So I came out to the RV, which I come out to often, but I don't look at this camera so often, so I didn't think about it. But anyways, I came out here to figure out what was going on. And lo and behold, I found out that this light right here, which should be on like it is, was off. Because right when you plug it in, this light on top of the camera right here should start blinking, but it wasn't. So it made me realize very quickly that this outlet wasn't working. And on this outlet, you see it says GFI, which stands for Ground Fault Interrupter. So the first part of this video is to try to help resolve an issue of maybe one of your outside outlets or even some of your interior outlets not working. So let me show you on the inside where you're going to reset your GFI outlet. All right, so on almost every modern RV, you're going to have GFI outlets in certain areas. You'll likely have one in the kitchen. You'll likely have one outside on the side of your RV for like an outside TV, or if you plan on plugging something in. And the reset area for it is going to be here in your bathroom. So in the restroom, you're actually going to have the primary GFI outlet, which is right here. And just like on your home, you're going to have the two buttons on it. You're going to have the test button and the reset button. And when you press the reset, it should pop, and that means that you've restored power to your outlet. Now, if you have another issue with it, and for some reason it's still not working after you've done that, you definitely want to check the other outlets as well and make sure it's not just your GFI outlet that you're having a problem with. And to see if you've popped a breaker, this panel that you see on pretty much all of my RV walkthrough reviews, which appears somewhere in the video, is going to house your breakers as well as your fuses. Your fuses are going to be for all your 12 volt stuff, basically your lights. Oftentimes in most RVs it'll be for your lights at least, as well as other 12 volt items you may have in your RV. And then your breakers are going to be for all your 110 stuff. So this is the stuff like your refrigerator, if it's a residential refrigerator, fireplace, TVs, things that plug into a traditional outlet like this. So again, this is going to be for all your stuff that would normally plug into this type of outlet, and this is going to be for all your stuff that ties to the batteries that are in your RV. So just like in your house, you're going to want to flip it off and test it and then flip it back on. But if you have a breaker that's constantly flipping, you either have a weak breaker or you have a breaker that is flipping because there's an issue, and you need to find out what that issue is before you just keep trying to flip it back. But that can potentially lead to a fire or some other type of electrical problem if you're not careful and you don't check out specifically what could be causing that breaker to flip. And then also in here, one thing that I want to show you is how this is kind of broken up. So you have two legs to your 50 amp circuit. You have this leg and you have this leg, and this will show you specifically what is on each leg. So if you pop a 50 amp breaker, you may not just be popping the entire 50 amp breaker, you're popping too many circuits that could be on one specific leg. But yeah, this is how your fuse panel and your breaker panel is all set up. Okay, for the next topic, we are looking at tires that are currently covered. But if you purchase a new RV, it is very likely that you're going to see something a little interesting on the tires of your RV. And that's going to be a green valve stem cap on your valve stem versus the typical black valve stem cap that you'll see on most cars when you buy tires or whenever you go to get your tires serviced. And that's because the tire distributor will typically inflate the tire with nitrogen versus oxygen. And a lot of people will wonder, well, why do they do that? And does does it stay that way? Because if you, of course, add air to your tire, are you replacing the tire with air instead of the nitrogen that was originally put in there? And the answer is yes. Slowly over time, you're going to end up not having nitrogen in your tire, and you're going to replace it with air. But why do they put nitrogen in the tire versus oxygen or versus air? And the reason why they do that is because it actually leaks out slower. So what does that mean? That means over time, as your tire expands and contracts, as you go up and down, certain elevations, as you get into colder, warmer climates, as the tire builds up heat when it's in the sun or when you're driving over roads, oxygen will leak out through really, really small microscopic pores through the tire. And that's one of the reasons why, like on bicycles and RVs, trailers, cars, and depending on the temperature and when it gets really cold, that's where you actually lose air through your tire. Now with nitrogen, you actually lose air through the tire at about 1/3 the rate. Nitrogen molecules are larger than oxygen molecules, so they just don't seep through the tire as quickly. Also, nitrogen maintains better air pressure because it lacks the moisture that you typically would find in oxygen. Nitrogen is also a dry gas and doesn't support moisture, which can also reduce the chance of corrosion on steel wheels. So if you see, RVs that typically would have your steel trailer wheels, by having nitrogen inside versus oxygen, you reduce the chance of corrosion inside of your wheel as well, which most wheels are painted wheels and you're typically not going to have much of an issue with corrosion, but it does, add to the benefits of nitrogen. And again, once you start inflating the tire with, your own inflator, or you go to a gas station and you fill them up there, it's unlikely you're going to be putting nitrogen back into your tire. You're really going to have to go to a specific tire shop that uses nitrogen to inflate tires. But that's the reason why the green valve stem cap is on your tires. And again, just expect as you're inflating your tires, you're checking the air pressure, and you could be letting some out before you put some new air in. You are going to be removing some nitrogen and slowly introducing oxygen as the primary gas that's filling up your tire. You can always take it to a tire shop, and again, specifically one that uses nitrogen or has it as an option, and refill your tires with nitrogen, because there are several perks. But for the most part, it's just important to maintain the correct tire pressure in your tire, regardless of the gas that you're filling it with. So the next one is one that I talk about when I do my RV reviews and my walkarounds, but it's one that's very important for you to understand about your RV in general. And that is, does your RV breathe? Are there areas for air to escape intentionally on your RV? Now, as much as we'd like to believe that RVs are the sealed vessel that's going down the road or that you travel in, it's not so. There are certainly areas of an RV that are naturally going to allow air to escape, or the introduction of air into your RV to occur. So where do those areas exist? Intentional areas that exist are not the same as areas that are required to allow air to travel through, such as your slide out seals right here, right? This isn't an area that was designed to intentionally allow air to pass through. It's just the fact that if you have a slide on your RV, naturally you're going to have some areas that they try to seal up as best possible, but air can still escape. An intentional area would be something like these slits at the bottom of the window, which are called weep holes. Weep holes allow condensation, moisture, and air to escape through the bottom of your window if it builds up. Basically, if you have hot or cold air inside of your RV and it's opposite to the air outside, or you're in a high moisture environment, you could have moisture that builds up on the inside of your window and it can run down and collect on the bottom. And if you don't actually have a way for that water to escape, it'll just continue to build up there, and you could have water damage. You could have water droplets forming that actually cause delamination on the inside of your RV, or dependent on the outside wall here, on the outside of your RV. So that's why these weep holes exist. That's basically a way for water to come out. Well, the thing that you have to be very careful of because of these weep holes is that can also be a place for water to get into your RV. So if you're washing your RV, if you go through an RV car wash, if you go through a truck wash that washes, commercial trailers, and they're spraying the side with pressure sprayers, or if you're doing it by yourself, trying to get bugs off, trying to just wash your RV after, maybe you went through an area that was muddy or dirty, do not spray water into these holes. If you do, you will find that you'll have a mess of water on the inside of your RV, because these are designed, again, for water to escape, but not to get into your RV. So yes, RVs are designed to breathe in a few areas intentionally. In those areas, you got to be careful, because if it can let water out, you can very easily let water in. Now, here's something I've probably brought up 100 times as I do RV reviews. It's this vent right here. Now, I'm going to say about 90% of RVs have it. 10% probably don't. And when you don't have it, you can actually cause problems without realizing it. This is the vent that is actually installed behind the exhaust vent on your microwave, or if you have some other means of exhausting air. If your microwave has an exhaust vent built into it, this is what the outside of that vent looks like. And a lot of people don't realize that it can be opened and closed. So if you look closely at it, you'll see that there's a flap inside of there, and our flap is currently open because when we use the RV and we use the microwave and we're using the exhaust vent above the stove, let's say you're cooking bacon, eggs, or something else, you need to actually vent that steam, vent that air, so it's not just recirculating inside of your RV. If you don't keep this vent open, what ends up happening is the minute you turn that vent fan on above your stove, all you're going to do is recirculate that steam and everything else inside of your RV, and you can actually create moisture problems inside of your RV. My brother actually ran into that after Hurricane Michael hit Florida. They had an RV that they lived in for about a year, and actually it wasn't quite that long, it was about 8 months, and they were cooking inside of it, and they had a dehumidifier in there, and they always wondered why they had such a bad condensation issue, why all the windows were fogged up, why everything was getting wet every time they'd cook. And they didn't realize that because the flap on their specific vent hood right here on the outside was closed, all they were doing was recirculating all that moisture and steam inside of their RV, and it was creating moisture issues. So again, this should remain open if you're actually using your RV and you're planning on cooking. And in reality, we just never close it. I hit it with bug spray every now and then just to kind of keep bugs from getting into it so they don't get into the back area of the vent on the inside. But in reality, we don't close it. We allow it to help circulate air in and out of the RV. And I just hit it with some bug spray about once every couple of months just to prevent bugs, spiders, and things like that from getting into it. But that is a really important flap to keep open. And then finally, we're going to talk about a topic that is beaten to death. This is a topic that everyone asks whenever I go out and I film RVs. Specifically, larger fifth wheels is usually what causes people to come out and start asking questions about this. But it's a topic that comes up all the time. And that is how much of your RV's weight actually rests on the axles of your RV. And I know this is a topic, again, we beat this one to death, and that's why I'm putting it at the end of this video, because if you've heard this topic multiple times, you have an opportunity just to kind of end the video and move on to the next one. But that is, again, how much weight of your RV typically will be resting on the axles of the RV at any given time. So I wanted to make this math kind of simple. Even though this is not going to be an exact science and it's not going to apply to every single RV, it will probably apply to 95 to 99% of them. At any given time, you should only have about 60% of the weight of your RV actually resting over the axles. So whenever you see me go over axle weight rating, you will specifically see numbers that oftentimes will confuse you, and you're going to go, well, that shouldn't support the entire weight of the RV. Why are they putting those small axles on an RV? In the case of our specific RV, this RV has a 17,500 pound gross vehicle weight rating, which is the total weight of the RV loaded to max capacity, and it has twin 8,000 pound axles, which are typically larger than the axles you would see on an RV this size. Most of the time it'll have 7,000 pound axles, but we have 8,000 pound axles. Our previous RV had twin 7,000 pound axles, and it had a 14,000 pound GVWR, which means the total weight of the RV fully loaded to capacity was actually matched by the axle capacity. But on a lot of RVs, what you're going to see is maybe twin 6,000 pound axles on a 14,000 pound GVWR RV, or you'll see maybe twin 7,000 pound axles on a 17,000 pound GVWR RV, and you're wondering what in the world is going on. They are way over the capacity of what those axles are designed for. So what does GVWR really mean, right? We know that that is the gross vehicle weight rating by the manufacturer that's been applied to an RV when it is fully loaded. What does the manufacturer consider a fully loaded RV? Well, they consider a fully loaded RV an RV that has people in it, an RV that has supplies in it, an RV that has full tanks. Basically, your water tanks are loaded fully to capacity, and an RV that is set up for camping, essentially, at full weight. Now, if we factor all of that in, then we could easily say, wow, yeah, the axles would be over capacity virtually all the time. But the reality of towing an RV is that you're not supposed to have your tanks full. You may have a little bit of water inside of your tanks, but you're not supposed to have them full, or probably even half full. You're not going to physically be in the RV, and hopefully you don't have every single thing you can pack into your RV loaded, because you don't want the weight of your RV to be at that maximum weight all the time when you're not towing it. Let me explain why. So if 60% of your RV is going to be resting over the axles, well, the reason why I say that is because roughly 20% of your RV is going to be resting over the back of the tow vehicle. I've said this before, the rear axles on your RV, these axles are like the rear axle of a pickup truck. The front axle that supports the front weight of your RV would be the rear axle of the pickup truck. So the best way I like to compare this is vehicles have a front and rear axle. These are just the rear axle. The front axle is whatever you have towing your RV. So you're going to have about 20% of the weight of your RV transferring to the actual back of your pickup truck. And then again, hopefully you don't have your tanks completely full and you haven't stuffed your RV to capacity and you're not inside of your RV when you're towing it, because that's that other delta that we're talking about. That's that other percentage. When we say 60% is going to be resting on the axles, 20% on the back of your truck, that other 20% is the stuff that should not be loaded into your RV when you're traveling. Full tanks, people, some of the supplies that should be in the truck and some of the supplies that should be in the RV. That's basically what we're talking about. If you have 3,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity in your RV, basically the difference between the dry weight of your RV and the gross vehicle weight rated, or the fully loaded rating of your RV, if you have 3,000 pounds of cargo capacity, then the way you should factor this is that you should probably only have maybe 1,000 pounds, maybe 1,500 pounds max of equipment in your RV at any given time. That extra 1,500 pounds is really designed for static weight. The holding tanks to be full, people inside of the RV, stuff that you bring to the RV that you're going to use during your trip. And then of course, before you leave your campground or before you hit the road, you're going to empty your holding tanks. RV axles or trailer axles in general certainly have a buffer in terms of what they can carry, the amount of weight that they can handle at any given time. But that buffer is typically temporary. It's only so you can get the stuff out of your RV and unload it, like your black tank and your gray tank, before you hit the road. So that's always a topic that gets brought up all the time. Why on earth are the axles underrated for the specific RV that they're on? Typically they're not. They're not underrated for the actual load that they're going to be carrying, even when maxed out. So that's typically the part that confuses a lot of people. And again, the front axle of your RV is the back axle of your pickup truck. That's supporting the front weight, just like the front axle of a pickup truck supports the front weight of the pickup truck. Anyways, I sure hope this video has been helpful. I'm going to do more videos like this. Basically, what I'm trying to do is just help people understand some of the simple principles of owning an RV, some of the little things that might oftentimes confuse you and you have to look for a resource. And I'm going to try to provide some of that information to you over a series of videos. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.